We've got a request from Antonio Salieri here, and he says, "When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was compose music and glorify the God who gave me talent. I got that wish. I'm at the apex of music in Austria. I'm the court composer to the emperor. My work is popular. By most standards, I should be happy, except I'm not. Recently, I discovered the work of a young composer new to Austria, and though no one necessarily recognizes him as a genius, I do. I can tell immediately that he has been blessed by God, and worse, I can't help but seeing his gifts as a slight from God. I'm filled with jealousy and growing bitter. I find myself doing whatever I can to hurt this young man's career. I'm a different person. What's going to become of me?" Antonio Salieri. So this is an intense situation indeed, and what we're going to do is we're going to give Salieri partly a weather forecast and maybe partly some things he can think about that might help him deal with the situation. So we're going to let the first card here in this three-card reading represent the direction of his current energies. Where are things headed? We're going to let the second card represent a communication from the spiritual presence that he feels abandoned by. And we're going to let the third card represent maybe a constructive action or set of actions that he can take to reconcile all these negative feelings. So it's a pretty big reading. We're gonna jump right in. So here's what we got. The first card is the Hierophant reversed, and then we've got the Ace of Wands reversed, and then we've got the Page of Wands. So very quickly, there are a few things to look at here, and the first is that, two of the three cards are reversed, and I think that underscores the level to which he feels his world has been turned on his head. He's overwhelmed, and this is important. I think the other thing that underscores the importance is that both of these cards down here are Wands cards, and Wands cards are related, in my mind, to passion, creativity, related specifically to the work we feel we were meant to do, our purpose in life. And I think that underscores, again, the importance of this situation, but the passion he feels about it. And then the top of the triad here is Major Arcana card, and I think that underscores the depth of the situation as well. We're going to jump right in and talk about the Hierophant because there's a lot to talk about here, I think. Of course, this represents where things are headed, our current energies. And the card, of course, represents the Pope. Metaphorically, he represents formality, hierarchies, religious institutions, religion itself, and even blessings. Now, based on what we know and what Salieri told us, this is sort of dripping with meaning here in this card. And I think, first, it underscores the feeling of displacement in the institution that he's a part of, the court that he's a part of. Maybe he feels this new young composer has distracted the attention of the emperor and his peers. Now, it doesn't seem like they've abandoned him completely, but he does feel jealous of this young man. And that may be breaking the harmony of this institution that he is a part of. And this may suggest that he likes institutions. Now, my instinct is to say that he probably feels more abandoned than he actually has been, but there is a danger in allowing those feelings to fester, because if he lets those feelings of abandonment affect the way he treats people, others may not want to be around him, and then that camaraderie of that institution may crumble. There's also the fact that he said he's actively trying to hurt this young composer, and if anyone finds that out, it's not going to bode well, probably, for his relationships. It's possible that the arrival of this young man and the success of the young man here is causing him pain, maybe because perhaps this young composer is going around the normal ways of doing things. Salieri maybe had to pay his dues to earn his place in the favor of the emperor, right? But this young man doesn't maybe have to work as hard, and that's upending Salieri's impressions of how things are supposed to work. There's an element of supplication to this card, of course. We have, these two men bowing before the main figure of the card. Salieri may have been in a position to which people bowed to him, and maybe now he feels as though everyone's bowing to this other composer, or worse, that he has to bow down. But I think above even all of that is the religious implication. up till now, I sort of just talked about the overall, institutional implications. But God was a big part of Salieri's question, and of course the Hierophant is the Pope. So we can't leave that out. And I think this represents the feeling of abandonment by that God that he talked about. But I think even more than that, because we're talking about the path that he's walking on right now, if things don't change, I think this suggests that he could wind up breaking with that religious tradition, breaking with that deity, of shattering those ties if things don't change. His feelings of abandonment may grow into resentment, and it could cause him to lose his faith, to leave the church, and to shatter his ties to the religious institution that he's been such a big part of. So if things don't change, that could be where he's going, not just the institutions of his everyday life, but also that religious institution, that relationship with God. Now, speaking of God, the second card is supposed to represent a message from that spiritual presence that he feels abandoned by. And I think the Eight of Wands here is fascinating. Maybe it's a little presumptuous to suggest that this is a message from God. But again, I mentioned that the wands sort of represent our life's great works. And the Eight of Wands, to me, always looks like a bunch of arrows shooting toward a goal. And even though it's reversed, it may slow, right? But it doesn't actually look all that different when it's upside down or when it's reversed. I mean, if you want to, you could say that they're still heading the same way. So maybe things are slower. If this is a spiritual advisor saying something, a message to Salieri through this card, I think what he's saying is that you're talented, your work is good, people love your work, and even though you're not rising at the same ascendancy of this new person, that doesn't mean that your work is meaningless or that you've been abandoned. We all move at different speeds, and we have different levels of success and abilities, and we have fertile times and we have fallow times, and maybe you feel like things aren't moving the way you need them to be, but they are moving, and your passion and fire and talent are going to carry you, and if you focus on that and try to release yourself from the sort of explosion that maybe this young composer is feeling, if you release yourself from jealousy, you might see this work move faster. Now, even if we don't accept that as a message from God, it doesn't hurt to consider its implications, right? Now, the final card here is the Page of Wands. And this is a constructive action or set of actions that he could conceivably take. And this is the only upright card in the reading. And again, it's a Wands card, and I think that matters. I always look at pages as students. I think they're innocent. I think they're fascinated with their suit. They're ready to learn. They're excited. They're ready to do new things. They're energetic. They're full of potential. And I think given its position here as a piece of advice, I think that the way to avoid the mire of the Hierophant reversed, of that break with religion, might be to approach things in the way that the page might. To approach music with that freshness, with a sense of wonder and energy, a little innocence. Maybe it's time to explore some new things in Salieri's work, some new styles, new techniques. What has he not tried before? What would be fresh? Push himself beyond what he's used to. Explore, experiment, get excited about what he's doing and look for the joy in it. I think he might even start to feel God in it again. And if he does that, then maybe this new composer won't bother him. Maybe breaking free of the stodgy structure from up here that we're used to may avoid the break in that relationship with God. It may even help him approach that relationship with a new fire, a new freshness, and it could be a new beginning if he takes a page sort of attitude towards things. He could be stagnated, and this could be the release from that. So we have a lot going on here. We've got a sort of sense of the feeling of abandonment, of broken structures, maybe even the risk of the relationship with his God breaking down. But a message from God seems to indicate that maybe, if we look at it this way, things are moving and he needs to trust in his talent, and he needs to realize that everyone doesn't move at the same pace. But maybe if he takes this sort of student, fresh, clear, new, excited approach to his music, he may find a completely new attitude towards doing things, and that could stop the path he's on right here. So there's our very dense and intense reading for Salieri, and we hope that this brings him some support.